It's finally happening, you guys. Hungary and Slovakia are taking the European Union to court over refugees, specifically the EU's refugee distribution scheme. What's a refugee distribution scheme, you might ask? Well, you've likely heard by now that the Middle East and North Africa have basically evacuated to the European welfare suprastate. And certain frontline countries like impoverished Greece and Italy are, for obvious geographical reasons, on the front lines of this ongoing crisis. And with the weather now warming, European leaders, well, they're expecting the crisis to intensify, with numbers peaking last summer's averages, where in Greece and Italy we're seeing some 3,000 mostly Muslim male migrants per a day. So the EU Council came up with a quota plan to distribute hundreds of thousands of refugees across Europe to lighten the burden on Italy and Greece. A little lesson in communism, kids. It's not just the wealth that gets spread around, but the misery too. Yeah, but there's only one issue with the EU's plan and why it won't work. It won't work if individual countries don't accept these refugees, migrants. And certain states, well, they're being a little naughty. To date, countries refusing to take in their so-called fair share of refugees include the based Slav, right, and Central European countries like Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic. So now the EU is behind schedule, with less than 18% of their desired migrants relocated under their quota system, 2 years after it was put in place. So now the EU globalists, sort of emboldened by their boys' win in France, well, they're putting a tremendous amount of pressure on these disobedient European states to accept more migrants or else face huge future economic sanctions. So suffice it to say, thank God for the Hungarians and Slovaks for having the cojones to take on their globalist overlords. This week, both countries, they addressed the European Court of Justice, where they argued that the four freedoms of the European project, the freedom of movement of goods, of capital and services and people, that they can only be ensured if their borders are protected. Duh. The ECJ's ruling is expected to come down this fall. So, in anticipation of their decision, I thought we'd play a little game of merits of the case and see if these naughty European nations stand a chance. So, never mind rhyme or reason around things like demographic shifts, a cultural tsunami, or even financial principles. According to EU law, that's all that's going to matter in this courtroom. According to the EU Convention, in its own words, passed by its own faraway mega government, can these supposedly sovereign nations be forced into accepting illegal migrants en masse? I present you with the Schengen Borders Code, passed by the European Parliament and Council. It's what the Hungarians and Slovaks are using as the backbone for their legal arguments. Now, some context here. The Schengen area is that border-free area comprising 22 EU countries, along with Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Sweden. As for the code, well, it's an act that outlines rules which non-EU country nationals are subject to whilst inside that area. And while it pains me to admit, one read of this document, and it becomes clear really quickly, EU member states, they got pranked. And this is a rigged court case. I mean, I'm no judge, but here, see for yourself. So basically, the Hungarian and Slovak endgame is to establish a border, right? A border not for EU passport carriers per se, but for migrants, for their countries, and quite boldly, for the Schengen area. Sorry, lads, it's not allowed. One read of the border code's fine print, and it becomes really clear. Internal borders, national borders, are not allowed, while practice tells us that the area's outer borders are completely ineffectual. Sentence after sentence of this code points to how all EU countries within the Schengen area must ensure crossing points of internal borders are kept open. I mean, I got a little excited when I saw the words reintroduce border controls in bold-faced font on the document, but was immediately deflated when I realized that it could only last for a maximum of 30 days. So you're only allowed to have borders for a period of 30 days. And only if there's a threat to public policy, whatever that means, or internal security. And only after you've already consulted with the EU Commission at least 10 days ahead of time. As for the external borders around the general bigger area, well, the code does a nice job of laying out rules and regulations for travel documents and checks for non-EU nationals, refugees, stipulating that you can refuse people who don't meet these requirements. Someone comes without a passport or a travel document, you can refuse them. But, shocker, it also includes a little asterisk for humanitarian reasons, a category that apparently applies to just over 1 million Muslim men from countries other than Syria and Iraq. I mean, it's cute to think that the EU will live up to its own document and defend the supposed achievements of Schengen from the wider border area, but sorry, it's just not going to happen. Not to sound crude, but unless mass deportations start taking place or armed guards start firing from the front lines, the migrant crisis is not going away anytime soon. It's already been years. Whole islands in Greece and Italy, they're already mini Afghanistans and Sudans. It kills me to say this, but the European Council, they're right. These hordes will eventually have to be relocated. Okay, so why have I just dragged you through all these legal weeds? To say this, I'm pretty sure Hungary and Slovakia are going to lose this court case. And not just because it's being determined by the ECJ, whose very livelihood is dependent on the EU remaining intact, but because those countries signed a crap deal, one that robbed them of their sovereignty, and now they're going to be held to account. And it really sucks because Hungary's President Viktor Orban has said that he will wait for it, accept whatever ruling comes out of the ECJ. Viktor Orban, the bright light amid a sea of European cuckery. The same guy who rightly pointed to the fact that this mass migration has been used as a Trojan horse by terrorists, by rapists, by opportunists alike. And if Hungary acquiesces to the EU's iron fist, no doubt Slovakia will follow suit. And like the UK, France, Belgium, Germany, and Sweden before them, the world will watch impotently as these last vestiges of European culture and values are invaded. The only question that remains, what then of the Czech Republic and Poland, which might soon become Europe's last hope? For the Rebel.media, I'm Faith Goldy. If you enjoyed this video, click below, like the video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.